I was diagnosed with spondylosis or degeneration as well as spondylolisthesis. Most of my symptoms were actually in my leg and my foot. I think I was more scared of the nerve pain. I was afraid to even bend over and pick things up off the floor, like take care of my daughter, get the dishes out of the dishwasher, which is crazy because I'm a young person. That's when I started seeing physical therapists. And then I realized this isn't working. I need to really understand my movement patterns in a more clear way. And that's what Whealth helped me do. I would consider myself 95, 99% better now. It's nothing, nowhere near where it was when I started.
Well, Paige, thank you so much for joining today. I appreciate it. So you started the Limitless program a few months ago. I'm curious as to why you started the program and also,
Yeah.
how we're feeling today.
Yeah. So I had been dealing with, I feel like I started around March, like February, March, and I had been dealing with pain, like nerve pain in my leg from that started in my back since August of 25. So it had kind of gotten better and then got worse again, and I had been to a couple physical therapists and I tried a lot of different things. Because I'm a physician, I have a busy schedule, and I just could not keep up with the amount of physical therapy that I needed. I knew I needed to get better. Um, so that's when I started looking at home programs, and honestly, I think it was a Reddit thread. I kept seeing Whealth program come up and everybody was raving about it. And just with my personality and my schedule, I knew that was gonna be a good fit, something that I could consistently do every day. And even though I did it for one area of my body, I have had other issues in the past with, my shoulders and my upper body, so, it's helped with that too, as a side effect. But yeah, that's kinda how I ended up with it. And then I just completed it. I was doing it every single day. And then as I started to get better and feel better, I started to sprinkle in my normal workouts, which is lifting and Pilates. And yeah, so I just completed it. And I would say, trying to think, when there was definitely a turning point, maybe by module 3, I started to feel almost like 85, 90% better. Um, I would consider myself 95, 99% better now. I still have my days, my flares, if I push it too hard or try new things or, sleep, um, isn't great, something like that. I'll
Sure.
have a flare, but it's nothing, n nowhere near where it was when I started.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what were you officially diagnosed with prior to joining the program?
So I was diagnosed with spondylosis or just general degeneration as well as spondylolisthesis um, at L3, L4, and I had L4 nerve root irritation. So most of my symptoms were actually in my leg and my foot, and I actually had left toe extension weakness in
Okay.
physical therapy, which is better now. But yeah.
So both of the spondies.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, being a physician, were there any conflicting things that you noticed or anything that was difficult for you to pick up on by doing the program?
No, if anything, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I every single one of my patients needs this," but,
Mhm.
um, yeah, so something that I really loved about the program too, and something that I think is unique to our hospital is kind of the holistic approach with the diet, the mindset. We actually have a program called Emerging from Chronic Pain that is led by physical therapists. Um, but it does include the same framework that the Whealth program includes, the sleep and the diet and the mindset and all
Sure.
of that. So that was immediate connection, something that I really liked. I would say it does take a certain personality to be
Yeah.
motivated to do these. That's, like, probably the one thing that I would, like, determine if somebody's a good fit for, but that's pretty much it, and I that's something I love about it, is that, like, I didn't have to wait for a physical therapy appointment, and I really also love the feedback from the Facebook group too, because you got, like, feedback within 24 hours at the most,
Most,
like,
yeah.
that's the longest it would take, um, so it was kind of, like, instant results, and it gives you a lot of flexibility, which I appreciate as somebody who, doesn't I work, like, banking hours, right? So if I wanted to go to physical therapy, I would have to take off work. So it's
Wow.
just not.
Is it that intense being a physician?
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like I have it easy.
Really? So what are the
Yeah.
hours?
Well, I am usually, like, 8:30 to 4,
Mhm.
um, but the problem isn't really, like it's that I'm booked out for, 8 to 12 weeks. So it's like and I don't like to cancel on people. Obviously, things happen where I have to, but, um, I moving my patients is such a hassle that me trying to fit in, sometimes am able to do things on my lunch break. There are physical therapists downstairs, so sometimes I would just go on my lunch break, but then the physical therapist isn't getting lunch, like, they're doing me a favor, but I just
Right.
didn't feel like it was sustainable, and, um a after dealing with it for so long, I was like, "Okay, I gotta, like, lock in and do something else because this isn't working."
Sure.
I wasn't seeing results.
So August of 2025, then you started in March, so 7-ish months of
Mhm.
pain. Um, how intense did the pain get? I know you were kind of saying nerve pain, numbness, and then the big toe extension was difficult. I mean, do you remember how difficult that was? How would you rate that on a pain scale?
I think it was less, like, uh, I mean, so, like I was telling you before, like, I did have back pain, but I kind of just I've been active my entire life. I, like, did CrossFit, ran marathons, so, like, I'm used to being
Yeah.
in kind of, like, constant pain, but, like, not like, I never attributed that to danger, right? I was just like, "Yeah, this is, like, normal. I've worked my body hard, and it's normal that I'm sore." So I was kind of, like, constantly sore, so and I started to, like, be like, "Oh, I wonder, like, how long," I would have never known, my foot pain was, like, nerve pain, but since I've backed off and kind of like now I'm just more Pilates and lifting, like, I'm not as sore as I used to be due to like, I'm not as intense now, so, I think I was more scared of the nerve pain. I don't know if it was, like, as intense or severe or it stopped me from doing things. I mean, every now and then I'll get, like, a 10 out of 10, like, shooting sharp pain that only lasts, like, for a second. But I would say, like, my pain was probably, like I don't know, I'm never good at this.
Yeah, and
Like
maybe it's not yeah, I know. It's not always the most helpful. You're like, "All right, well, it's a 3 or an 8 or whatever."
yeah, yeah, I just think for more it was, like, what it meant. Like, the nerve I get nervous with nerve pain because I don't want there to be any, like, lasting damage. I know nerves are just more sensitive, they take more time to heal, whereas, muscular or tendon can heal within, like, 8 weeks, where, like, a nerve is slower, right? So, I just really was motivated to stop irritating it,
Yeah,
so it didn't cause any more lasting effects.
yeah. So, I mean, when you got the MRI and the report, and you were diagnosed with spondylosis and spondylolisthesis, I always trip
Mhm.
up over saying that.
Mhm,
Um,
yeah.
did that I mean, did that provide clarity? Because I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
obviously you ended up doing our program. It's interesting though. You got the MRI and the X-ray, and then instead of going to PT, you did our program. So I'm curious as to why you didn't take that step. Was it simply just PT was going to take a long time, or did you not necessarily feel like PT was going to be all that you needed it to be?
Yeah, I think it was a little combination of both. I was like, I just don't know if this is like hitting the nail on the head. I just wasn't feeling, like, dry needling and like, "Oh, try this or try that," and I was just like, I wasn't really, like, seeing the full picture. I forget when I got the MRI. I got the MRI, like, really late in the process because I I just also, like, have a pretty positive mindset, and I'm like, "Oh, my body is just gonna" like, I mean, what is true is that your body 80% of the time will heal a bulging disc,
Mhm,
without doing anything, right? Unless you're, like, continuing to, do the same repetitive patterns that got you there in the first place, which is why this program is so important. It's to identify those patterns that are causing the pain, but, like, so I had when I first had the ridic symptoms back in August, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah, I'm having, like, ridic symptoms," but, I was just kind of, like, talking with my colleagues, and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna get better," and it did get better, and then I, like, heard it again, and from my lumbar extension moment, which I didn't know I had a spondylolisthesis at that time,
mhm,
so then when I hurt myself again in November, that's when this, like, whole thing really like, that's when I was like, "Okay, I have to lock in," and, like, that's when I started seeing physical therapists, and then I realized this isn't working. I need to really like understand my movement patterns in a more clear way. And that's what Wealth helped me do, especially with all the pelvic tilting and like the pelvic, because it's like I was afraid I wasn't deadlifting, I wasn't hinging at all because every time I would hinge in the gym, it would totally flare my left side up and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong.
mhm.
And I had a physical therapist, tell me, "Well, you don't need to hinge. Like, you don't like, there's other ways we can strengthen your hamstrings without and your glutes without hinging." And I was like, "Okay." But I had, like I've slowly, like I don't that's not the goal, right? Like, the
Right.
goal isn't to, like, do less, right? It's like, pain-free range of motion, yes, but, like, the goal is, like so I'm not doing overhead stuff, which I am now, thanks to Well. I wasn't doing overhead stuff for maybe a couple years, I just stopped,
Mhm.
because I had a shoulder problem. So now I'm doing overhead, and now I'm hinging very confidently. And, like, some of the cues that I learned were cues that I had never even heard of before, and, I mean, I consider myself, like, pretty, like, I did CrossFit for years, I have lifted, I've ran, like, I'm pretty, like,
Yeah.
comfortable in my body and comfortable with cueing, and some of the cueing was just great and, like, honestly, like, life-changing. I mean, I'm hinging now with no problem, so it's great.
That's kind of a funny concept. So, you and I, we didn't do a consultation to sign up. I think you reached
Mhm.
out, because we gave you the first responder military discount
Mhm.
position. But it's interesting when I have a lot of these consultations and, I will talk to someone such as yourself who says they're very in tune with their body. Hey, I've been running marathons or I'm a CrossFit or whatever. Like I've been lifting
Mhm.
for 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there's a resistance for people like this to sign up for the program because they think they already have a really good understanding of their body. And it's this weird thing where it's like, obviously, I know the program. Now you know the program. But for
Mhm.
me to convey that to someone who thinks they know their body, I'm like, I don't know how to really share what you're going to learn in the program until you do it. Right. I mean, how would you tell yourself knowing what you know now? Like, how would you talk to your older self? It's just,
Yeah.
it's a mystery.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that like, I probably thought that I think I probably had that thought too, like, "Ugh, is this really gonna help?" Like, what else like, that what else could there possibly be? But, I mean, that's a good lesson, like, a life lesson is, like, you don't like, try it out, and, like, the reviews on Reddit were great, like, and I would write the same one, like, it really did change the way I move
Okay.
and the way I
I
think
might have
about
to
certain
ask you
things.
to leave a review on Reddit. I'm not a Redditor, so
Yeah.
that's cool to hear that, people are leaving stuff there, because that's also another thing too that we get is there's so many good Google reviews, and then I think people are like, "Wait, there's some sort
Yeah.
of hesitation there," which is, again, then you kind of fall in like the too good to be true thing. But that is the thing as well. Like, there's so much work that had to be done in the program, right? I mean, how much time, Paige, would you say it took you? I know it took till 3 modules to feel like you're 85% better. Now you're 99 to 99% pain free after starting in March, and you were kind of supplementing in lifting and Pilates and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But it was a time commitment. I mean, what does that look like for people?
Um, so I would do it instead of my workout, which I allocate like 40 to 90 minutes a day. So it didn't really feel that much different. I think the hardest thing for me was like, okay, I'm going to really commit to this and I'm not going to do anything else because I got to a point, I think you had told me to do this kind of like elimination diet.
Mm,
And but like with exercise because I wasn't sure like I was doing at that point Peloton, Pilates, and lifting, like the Peloton bike. Um, and I couldn't figure out what thing was causing it. So I did nothing besides Wealth. Um, I guess like 40 minutes to an hour, just depending on how much time I had. There is flexibility within each workout to do less sets. Like if you don't have the time. I did also I went on vacation a couple times during that whole process, and I really liked that most of them, especially at the beginning, were body weight, and I still felt like I was getting a good workout and, I think I even told you, I wasn't I was used to, lifting heavier weights, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna gain weight," and I didn't. I I don't know why. I don't know if I was eating less or I didn't really track that, um but yeah, so I think because I just felt like I was engaging muscles differently than I had before, and so I liked that as well. I could just do it in, the hotel room. I didn't even have to, go to the gym, really. I could just do it
yeah. Yeah.
wherever I was.
So, being diagnosed with spondylosis and spondylolisthesis, one of the spondylosis is just kind of like a wear and tear degeneration or arthritis of the spine. And then
Mhm,
spondylolisthesis is one vertebra kind of slipping over the other, right? So,
mhm.
like you were kind of saying, hey, some of these cues were helpful for that. A little fly right here. Um, I- how do you feel like you were able to if the spondylolisthesis was contributing to the pain where you have kind of one vertebra shifting over the other,
Yeah.
how were you able to kind of reverse that or start to make way so that your spine wasn't shifting over itself and you were able to kind of get that core and that rib cage and pelvis back in alignment?
Yeah, so that was just, the pelvic tilting cues that are part of, the very be the first module,
Okay, mod one.
and, what'd you say?
Module one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and, just looking at myself in the mirror and watching because, as being a CrossFitter, right, where, like, th I was like, "Oh my god," how did I not have issues sooner?
Mm,
1, because, it's always like, stick your butt out, and, I have that, lumbar I can, shift it back pretty far, it's too much, and so, I wasn't squatting either, before this, I was really, the movements I was doing was getting, smaller and smaller,
yeah.
pain-free, so just having that feedback, and that body awareness and same with Pilates, because I have a reformer, and so when I would do certain things, on my back and on, side lying, it's that pelvic, um proprioception, the awareness of where my pelvis was and and as a result, then what stress that put on my lumbar spine, and then that swelling is what caused the nerve irritation. Um, and I also, so yes, it was like that pelvic, and then watching myself in the mirror, specifically with squats and specifically with the hinging, because that was like a major trigger for me is the deadlifting. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you'll see a lot of CrossFit athletes will kind of adopt this extension pattern. And,
Right.
if it's not causing pain, again, this is kind of I don't ever, it's not helpful for people to instill fear into like, oh, if you move like this, you're going to get injured. I don't think that's very helpful. But in hindsight, now the fact you're able to look back on your movement patterns and be like, huh, maybe that was contributing to my pain. And by analyzing that and working on that throughout the program, you were able to start making big, big leaps forward, to where
Right.
maybe you were clearly in too much extension, right? Which could have
Yeah.
been serving you for a specific time in CrossFit. But I mean, with all the overhead work too in CrossFit, overhead squats and other movements as well, it does serve you well to be able to get
Mhm.
into, more spinal extension. But if that is the default pattern that you're doing all the time, I think that's where it can become problematic and clearly was for you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So through going through analyzing, getting the pelvis in a better situation, that sounds like that was very helpful for you. Were there other things that you learned throughout the program that you didn't expect to learn that were helpful for spondylosis, spondylolisthesis, the nerve pain, or anything else like that?
Trying to think. Um, I can't think of anything right now. I just
Yeah.
think that that was, like, the biggest
Just that pelvic
impact for
awareness.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. And no one had like when you got the MRI, there was no is there just a complete disconnect between the MRI and then someone else helping you through that? Or, I mean, did you ever hear about the talk of the pelvic positioning prior to Wealth?
Yeah, I think it was it was maybe presented in a different way, but it was more just like, but in that way that was like, "Oh, you don't have to hinge, it's fine." But
Mm,
we did work on, like, squats and, like, bridging and that kind of thing, but I think it wasn't so focused around, like, oh, I don't think anybody ever checked my, like, pelvic tilt, like, or watched me do that. They checked everything else, but I don't think we focus as much on that tilting and the gliding, um,
yeah.
so I
Okay.
think that yeah.
Yeah, the gliding and yeah, that would be super helpful for getting the vertebra back kind of stacked and then working and building strength around that. Um, why do you, I mean, this is something that it bothers me because I for you, it didn't make sense when you're being told, "Hey, just don't hinge," right? The
Right.
goal of rehab is to not start to lose out on all of your movement options. And I think
Yeah.
there's a balance. Someone comes in with some sort of injury or pain and they go to a doctor, they go to a physical therapist or whoever, and so says, "Hey, let's not do this thing that's causing pain." And I think that makes sense in the short term. And I,
Yeah.
I I think it's good intention. Like we don't want to keep re-aggravating things, but I think unfortunately what that becomes is now don't do this thing or these exercises indefinitely forever for way too long, and then we start to get weaker. So I mean, why do you feel like for yourself, why was that what you were told? Just, hey, Paige, stop hinging altogether.
It was just like, "Oh, well, yeah, well, think about how much that's stretching the nerve, so why would you, like, do that, when there's other movements that can get you the results that you want?" But I was afraid, like, I was at a point when I first started the program, like, looking back now, which, like, makes me realize how far I've come, like, I was afraid to even, like, I mean, I was doing it, but every time I did it, I was, like, nervous, to, like, bend over and, like, pick things up off the floor, like, take care of my daughter, do the dishes, get the dishes out of the dishwasher, like, every time I bent over, I was like, "Okay, I'm doing this," but, like, I was scared, which is crazy because I'm a young person, like,
Yeah.
so I think now I do it without even thinking about it, which is great, but yeah, so, I mean, we have to bend,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it got me comfortable, and took the fear out of that movement for me and overhead stuff too, because you have to be able to do that. And so I think really like now that like scooping um motion for the upper extremity, I incorporate that a lot when I'm in Pilates. And that's helpful too. So I'm not flaring up my old injury.
Right. Yeah.
So I think those two movement patterns were really key for me.
Yeah, I think that's also where people miss out a lot on rehab or just looking at the body in general. It's very easy to get conditioned to specific diagnosis, specific area of pain, which means, hey, if I'm having nerve pain or lumbar, whatever that lumbar injury is. I think a lot of times we get conditioned to, okay, what are the 5 or 10 exercises that's just going to be working on that area? And for you, you're talking about the skill, the pelvic positioning, the glides and the tilts and stuff in the very first module. And that's great to kind of help set the pelvis and not get it to be gliding over itself. And then also kind of get the anterior, posterior, and then kind of get it neutral stacked on top, and that can work. That's a great skill. But as you're kind of saying there too, just the scapular scooping and the ability there, we're able to kind of lock that pelvis in a better orientation that might be more helpful for someone with pain if we're able to bring that stability from the scapula. So, the scapula and the rib cage have a very interesting relationship too. And I
Mhm,
think that's where, if you have back pain or just, if you're listening to this right now and you have some sort of, problem or pain with one body part, yeah, it's helpful to kind of think about, okay, what can I be doing with that body part? Maybe how can I assess that movement there? But a lot of times too, there's other kind of push and pulls from body parts above and below. So
mhm,
the rib cage too is going to impact how the pelvis sits and vice versa. The scapula moving around the rib cage is going to impact how the rib cage kind of sits on top of the pelvis. So
right,
that's where it's very difficult in my experience to truly, let's just say, solve a low back injury by just looking at the low back. And that's kind of the
mhm,
inconvenient truth. We do kind of have to look at the scaps and the rib cage and the breathing. And before you know it, you're working on maybe a lot more areas than you initially wanted to. Um, but again, I don't, sometimes I do think you really can work on an injury just by working on resiliency of that individual tissue. But most times when it starts to become chronic, you got to kind of look elsewhere. Or at least
mhm.
that's our ideology.
Yeah, it
So
worked for me. Yeah.
I love to hear it, and that's why we're
Mhm,
here. So,
mhm.
Paige, what kind of problems, health challenges are you seeing in your day to day?
My patients?
Yeah, and your patients.
Um, a lot of back issues. I see, a lot of chronic migraine too. That's kind of, one of the big things that I treat, and, then I also, um, have a amputee and prosthetic and orthotic clinic too. So
Wow.
I do a um, lot of different things at the hospital. Yeah.
So low back, chronic migraines, and then
And
amputee.
then neck, low back and neck, like spine and shoulders, like the whole like musculoskeletal thing, but I would say backs take up 70% of
Okay.
my.
And what within the low back, within the neck, within the I mean, obviously migraines, I understand, but
Mhm.
what are people coming in with to you to try to get help on? Is it a lot of the same
Um
stuff that you see with wealth?
Yeah, and then I will say I have a subset too of the hypermobility. So I've never done the hypermobility program, because I don't consider myself. I think I have some joints that are lax, but I don't consider myself as like I don't meet the hypermobile criteria as far as, like, the Baten scale,
Mhm.
um, but I have a lot of hypermobile EDS patients, um, so I have referred them to the program, even though I don't really know what that actually feels like because I've never done it, but I've done the, Limitless program, and I can speak to that, and how much that's helped me. So, yeah, I think that, a lot of what I'm seeing is, um, I see everything, I see some of the people kind of like me where it's just, like, somebody that's, pretty active and just, like, strains their back, some people that have had, multiple back surgeries, we like, kind of like both ends of the spectrum and everywhere in between, and, we have, like, the full service, clinic set up, so we also have doctors that are doing the interventions, right, like the spine injections and all of that, but I just kinda like to get to the root of the problem, but not every patient wants that, right? Some just want the medications and want
Yeah.
injections and don't really wanna do the work, so you have to meet people where they are.
Right. Okay. I mean, and that is an interesting perspective as well, because I think when people are dealing with chronic pain, a lot of times it's very easy, I think, sometimes to point fingers like, oh, it's the doctors or the hospital. And then
Mhm.
sometimes it's like, oh, it's the clients don't want to do the work or whatever. And I think a lot of times there can be kind of responsibility in both ends. I mean, sometimes I do think physicians or doctors might not, let's just say, might not understand or even value potentially, some of the stuff that we teach in the program. Hey, like we should probably get you to start moving better as well. And then you might not need medication. But conversely, there's a lot of people out there where, like for you, you understand the power of movement and you might see patients that where it's like, hey, the injection or medication's only going to get you so far, but they don't
Right.
necessarily want to do the work. Um, I'm curious from how long have you been a physician for working in this field?
So I graduated med school in 2015, and then
Oh,
I've finished my residency and started working in 2019. So,
okay.
yeah, yeah, so I'm a big believer. So I'm also boarded in integrative medicine. I did a fellowship at with Dr. Andrew Weil, and I'm like a big believer in sleep and food, diet, and then also um your mindset, right? And so like if 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 you believe that you're not gonna get better, you're not gonna get better. So I
Right.
really try to coach my patients to how they talk to themselves because your nervous system internalizes that when you're like, "Oh, my back is killing me," or, I'm like, "Okay, let's just, like, reword this," right? Like, you're in a lot of pain, you're having a lot of pain, and that makes sense, and, like so to try to just detangle, like, the belief system, and that's something that Wealth does too, which I think is amazing, and so it's so impactful for healing, and just, like, long-term success. It's just believing that your body is capable of healing, and not treating your body like a problem that needs to be, fixed, right? It's, like, trying to give you information like, "Hey, don't move like this anymore. It's not working for me." Um, so, like, that's something that I really aligned with, and then also, like, what you put in your body is so important, like, food-wise.
Yeah.
Um, so
I don't think there could have been a better connection. I mean, my read on the situation with you joining the program, sleep, nutrition, mindset, movement. I mean, those are all the
mhm.
things that we talk about that seems like you're
Yeah,
receptive to, right?
yeah.
I mean, so the integrative side, would you say are there some kind of stark contrast from what you learned there compared to traditional med school?
Yeah, unfortunately. I think, like, I didn't learn anything about nutrition in medical school, at least from a, like, a biochemical, yes, like,
Mhm.
but from a actual how it impacts your health, no. Um, and which is probably apart from sleep, is probably the most important thing that's going to impact your health, so no. But I've always, like, lived that way personally, so that's why I did the fellowship because I just wanted a little bit of credibility to, like, I knew these things to be true because that's how I was living my life, but I really wanted to fully master them and be able to, um, like, confidently share those things with, like, evidence. That's the one thing about integrative medicine, yes, it's, like, based in diet and lifestyle and mind body and all of this stuff, but it's all evidence based. So that's um, that's really why I did that extra training, um, just so I could confidently communicate that with every patient. So even if a patient doesn't come to me for like an integrative medicine evaluation, because I do those consults too, but if it's just like a person that comes to me for chronic back pain and comes with the expectation that they just want pain medication, we're going to talk about sleep and food at least a little bit.
Mhm.
Because I can't, yeah, you can at least lead the horse to water and be like, listen, like this actually is impacting your pain, the fact that you're only eating processed foods. So like let's talk about what things you can incorporate, or at least plant
Yeah.
that seed.
Yeah, I think so I dealt with a disc herniation and nerve pain. I had an L5S1 disc herniation. I was a member of this program in college, and
Mm,
I think I was 21 at the time when I went through this program, and to me, Andrew was one of the first people that I saw that really put it all together. I don't wanna say I didn't learn anything nutrition-wise from him, but I really already had a good understanding of nutrition at that
yeah.
point in time, but the movement stuff was just there are so many light bulbs going off, talking about pelvic positioning and breathing and all these mechanics that I hadn't learned, and chiros and PTs and doctors were not helping me out with. It was, "Here's your MRI report, here's your X-ray,
Mhm.
you're not gonna get better." Um, and I think also at the same time, I had heard and kind of knew of the power of sleep and nutrition. I think really what I got from Andrew and his first program, which was so helpful, was kind of the mindset around pain. Some of those things that you were talking about,
Yeah.
I agreed. Like, if you don't think you're going to get better, you're probably not. If you're very fearful of it, not going to be great with pain. So, removing some of that fear around movement and re educating the body, but then also just tact the tactics of movement. I mean, there's like 150 movements in the program. I felt like maybe that's where I was lacking a lot, was the movement realm. And, you're talking, Paige, about when patients come in for chronic back pain, you're talking about the importance of sleep and nutrition. Um, Maybe what you learned in Wealth a lot more was maybe the movement stuff. Do you feel like is there kind of a gap in, let's just say, the movement knowledge in what is known, what is taught, compared to nutrition and sleep? Or, I mean, what's your read on that? Where's the science and where are the gaps?
For like my medical training,
Yeah,
like
medical training.
so
What?
yeah, I mean, also, I'm an osteopath, so I had, like, a whole extra training. It's, like, all of normal medical school, and then we have a whole extra, like, subset of classes and, like, hands-on labs where we
Okay.
learn sort of like chiropractic stuff. It's like a mix of, like, massage, chiropractic, or PT. So we have an extra, understanding of the body and how it works. So I mean, I feel like I got a little extra than maybe in like a traditional allopathic training, but I mean, even that is nowhere near what clearly I needed. I needed help
Yeah.
still, right? And I think that's where we lean on the physical therapist a lot, which I do lean on them a lot because I'm only one person and I can't do like a full movement assessment in my first visit with them. And I'm not like, I will give people home exercise programs, but I think, we really need that dedicated time,
Yeah.
right? So I was doing it an hour a day, right? So physical therapy at most is usually 3 hours a week, um, for 8 weeks, let's say. But yeah, um, I would say, like, there's absolutely, like I mean, in residency, that's different. I mean, we get more hands-on training, but, like, just a general family medicine doctor is gonna have almost none, as far as, like, body mechanics are
Right.
concerned.
So, I mean, I guess what credential do you not have? You're talking about integrative medicine,
Yeah.
nutrition, osteo. What so you graduated med school in 2015, so what are all
Yeah.
kind of are we missing any other bullet points there?
No, so I have, so I'm a DO, I'm an osteopath, and then I did my residency in physical medicine and rehabilitation, so that's, like, encompasses the sports medicine and the chronic migraine and the prosthetics, and then I did my integrative medicine fellowship for 2 years, and then I did, an obesity medicine, board certification, like, just training and board certification, just because obesity affects so many of my patients anyway. Again, it's just my personality, I like to confidently, like, speak to things, I don't wanna just say, like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
that I don't know, I wanted to have that extra board certification, so that's it for now, I'm sure I'll do something else, but I'm gonna take a little break for a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Yeah, you gotta be
yeah,
busy. And I mean,
yeah,
that's no joke for school and all of the studying that you had to do leading up to that point. I mean, you've probably been go, go, go studying and working for a long time, huh?
yeah, yeah, but it's, like, all I've ever known, so now I'm, like, bored. I'm like, "What do I do? I don't have to study after work or, like, after I put my daughter to bed," like, um, but no, it's been good, I've been enjoying the break.
What, obesity too, that seems to be a very big challenge that we're dealing with in the States, and I guess in the
Mhm,
Western world, all over, it seems like. You know, I it's interesting. I don't know where my life's gonna take me. I'm 29, but I've been
mhm,
helping people out, more so Wealth, we have people come in, and I think they lose weight and improve their metabolic markers as a byproduct. But for the vast majority of what we're doing right now, it's movement, it's mobility, it's chronic pain, that sort of thing, which is a cool thing for me to be involved in building this company because a lot of times, like yourself, you had nerve pain. That was something I had, sciatica, disc herniation. So it's cool to be able to almost give back and have these conversations with people who are struggling with similar things that I struggle with. And I've thought about, okay, what else would if it weren't helping people out with maybe their chronic pain or back pain or injuries, I love health and fitness. What else would I be interested in? And the nutrition thing is very interesting to me as well because I grew up overweight and I really struggled with that probably until I was 15. And now it's been so long, like I kind of forget. Well, maybe I had some eating disorders by, I would say realistically up until 2022, but
mhm.
really past that, I could see that being really interesting. But we're not dealing with people with obesity. I mean, what's your read on that situation? Is that the most pressing health issue that we're dealing with, or do you see other things?
Ugh, that I would say, like, the the processed foods and eating them so quickly and, um, not mindfully, right? And, like, just, like, I think more about the kids, like, what the kids are eating, and just, how it's impacting not just, like, our body habitus, but, um, uh, our mental health, just the lack of nutrition, right? So I try not to focus on, like, I mean, yes, obviously, like, I'm trying to get this person, like, healthy, not just skinny or not just, like, to a certain BMI. So I do focus on nutrient density in the foods, and we have so many studies that show that, like, mental health is greatly impacted by, poor diet.
Yeah.
Um, and I just worry about, the kids just eating all these packaged foods um, and then also I think I worry about like, food the most, and it's so interesting too, like, a lot of my patients with, that are affected by obesity are, they're doing all the right things, like, they're eating all the right foods. It's not we've adopted a more like a cancer model, of treating obesity where, like, this is not your fault, like, this is not a willpower thing, this is more of, like, this is a metabolic issue that you're not going to out exercise or out, diet, right? So that's where, a lot of the medications come in handy and, like, not forever, but for
Mm.
a little bit,
That's
so
interesting. When you say we've adopted kind of the cancer, who is we? Is
mhm.
that just
That's
that
like the American Obesity Medicine, like, society, like, that's, like, how it's taught, um, to us now. And I've
do
seen that in my patients too,
yeah.
like, they're like, "I have not changed what I'm eating. I'm eating the same exact foods, but now that we've started certain medications, the weight's coming off because certain parts of the metabolism are being activated, that were previously being blocked." Um, but it's very, like, validating for them. They're like, "Oh, so I wasn't doing anything wrong," you know?
Interesting. So,
Mhm.
this is all the GLP-1s, I
Um,
assume?
sometimes, yeah, sometimes
Okay,
it's GLP-1s, sometimes, there's, oh, maybe, like, there's under 10 that medications, including GLP-1s that
okay,
can be used, yeah.
okay. So you're saying that these people are eating the exact same amount, but plus taking the medication and losing weight?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that's the feedback from them. I'm obviously not in their house, but
I see.
but that's what they're telling me, and I mean, I don't think they're, like, you know I mean, maybe they're eating less, but they're not eating anything differently,
Right, right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious because I think I the studies, right? I think people have a tendency to probably a lot of times vastly underreport or just be unaware of like how much
Yeah,
they're eating or what their calories look like. But that'd be interesting. I'm speaking out of my lane. We don't work with people directly with obesity.
yeah,
I'm sure you see
yeah,
that. But yeah, it is it's difficult too because I know diabetes and the metabolic health issues are, I think, probably the worst they've ever been for teens at this point
mhm,
in time, right?
yeah,
So sad to see.
mhm,
You're always kind of in our industry and probably same with you. You're kind of working with where's the line between responsibility and then ignorance and education because you can make the statement like, "Hey, someone who's 6 years old or 5 years old," or wherever that line is, okay, up till 13 years old or 18, they really don't have too much control of what they're eating. But then at some
mhm,
point in time, okay, maybe there is a little bit of responsibility there. But yeah, it's tragic to see young kids be dealing with that.
I know,
And I think sometimes one thing I thought was helpful for me, and I think, people who listen to this podcast, they're trying to find health answers.
mhm,
I think a lot of people do struggle with nutrition or body weight or metabolic health. A lot of people who come to us struggle with injuries and chronic pain. And I think something that was helpful for me personally was like whether or not you want to believe it's your fault. One thing is like, hey, it might not be your fault, but it's your responsibility.
yeah, for sure,
That was helpful for me because I was wrestling with the beliefs potentially, chiropractors and PTs kind of told me some nasty stuff like, hey, you're never going to get out of pain. You can't do this. You can't do that. Don't squat.
yeah,
Don't deadlift. This is genetic. And so, at 21, that was soul crushing for me. And I was like, how did I end up in this place? Maybe I'm mad at this person or that professional. I want help. And at the end of the day, I was like, okay, it might not be my fault, but if I want to improve,
yeah,
it is my responsibility. That was helpful for
absolutely,
me.
yeah, kinda getting out of that victim mindset that we can get in for sure, and just, like, taking control of, your own life. I mean, I think we all if you've ever been in pain, you get there
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you just get it's like you feel so sad because it has a meaning like outside of just pain, right? It's like, what does this mean? Does this mean that, I'm not going to be able to work or take care of my kids or go on vacations or whatever is meaningful to you, right? There's a story behind the pain. And so it's really kind of understanding that psychology too, because it's not just like, okay, it's not straightforward.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying earlier, you're kind of scared to empty the dishwasher,
Mhm.
do the dishes, or bend down and take care of your daughter. I mean, I know you didn't struggle with those ideas forever because you kind of
Mhm.
started dealing with it in August of 25, and here we are
Mhm.
10 months later, but you started the program, a few months ago. But what were those stories or things that you were dealing with at that time when you were dealing with the numbness and pain?
Yeah, I mean, when I started in August, I was just like, I had a great mindset, right? I was like, oh, interesting. I was like, I have a little redick, and we are all kind of like, I was like talking to my colleagues, and we were all kind of like laughing about it. Like, we're like, oh, like, I was like, it's fine. And I didn't do anything. I did nothing, absolutely nothing. I
Because
kept,
you thought it would
I
kinda
just,
go away.
and it
Yeah.
did go away. It did go away, and then I, like, tweaked it again, doing something, and then it was, like, bad, and then it wasn't until I was, like, laying down at night and foot was, like my foot was hurting so bad, and I was like, "What?" And then I, like, got into the fetal position, and it went away, and I was like, "Oh, no." I was like, "This is my nerve." And then I was like, "Okay." That's kinda when I started to get scared because I think about all my patients, right? And, like, that are do have a not great mindset, right? And that are, like, trapped. I'm like, "I don't wanna turn out like a chronic pain patient."
Ugh.
So then I was like that's when I started to get looped into a not great mindset, and I was starting to become fearful, and then I, was motivated to figure out what was causing it so that I didn't keep repeating that pattern. Um, and I avoided a MRI for a long time because I didn't think it was really gonna change my management, and I was also I probably a little bit afraid to see what was like, it actually was way better than I thought, but, um, I didn't want it to, like, dictate like, so many people, will identify with their MRI too much.
Yeah.
Like, you'll be like, "Oh, like, where's your pain?" And they're like, "Well, I have a butt." I'm like, "No, I didn't ask you about that. Like, I asked you where you feel it in your body. Like, we don't have to talk about the MRI." There's actually I don't know if you're familiar with this MRI study, but, like, it's so fascinating. There's this study where they took MRIs of everybody was pain-free. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I think so, but carry
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, it's, like, my favorite. So they all these patients that they MRI'd had 0 pain, and I think starting at age 30, like, 50% might have even been more than that, like, 50% of people had, like, pretty significant degeneration, and then every decade after that, it just keeps going up, and by the time like, we all have messed up MRIs, nobody's MRI looks great,
Right.
but a lot of us aren't in pain. So, like, what differentiates why someone has pain and why someone doesn't, right? And so that's, like, where we start to get into all the nuances of mindset and inflammation and movement patterns, right? It's really fascinating. So that's why but also I was like, I don't really need to see what's back there because I might, like, think about it too hard." But it actually was fine, and it gave me a lot of information to be like, "Okay, yes, like, it is that translation of, the doctor that read it, not the radiologist, but he was like, "Oh, yeah, that's classic, like, you have a spondy," like, he was like, "I see that all the time," and that fits with, um, kind of my movement patterns, and then I ended up also, like, the last, like after I did Whealth, I was, like, feeling good. I was still having some pain at night, and then I just, like, got a new mattress, and that kinda, like, sealed the deal. I just needed which was kinda crazy because I was like, "It's definitely not my mattress, like, I've had this mattress, it's fine, it's fine." And then after I did Whealth, which I feel like that helped remove, like, the exercise piece of it, then I was like I went on vacation, and I was like, I have, like, 0 back pain now, like, so I guess it is my mattress. I just needed something firmer because I have the spondy, um, yeah, so it was like, you know, multifactorial, but, um, I feel like wealth is what got me, like, the majority of the way there and helped to, like, clear up some other factors.
Yeah. I mean, you raise an interesting point about the MRIs and the we have a lot of podcasts out
I'm
there.
gonna also I have a patient, I'm gonna have to run in, like, a couple minutes,
Cool,
but,
no worries.
um okay.
No worries. Well, yeah, we'll wrap up. I think you just bring up a good point. We have a lot of people who go back and they have these incredible results like you, and they get a follow-up MRI, and they kind of have that proof that they're better. But for me personally, I never wanted to go back and get a follow-up MRI because I was like,
Mm-mm.
I'm symptom free, and I want to admit
Yeah, that's
that
all I care about too.
I might have some
Like,
PTSD from the office personally, some untreated PTSD. But
for sure, for
yeah,
sure.
but yeah, Paige, thank you so much. I will let
Yes,
you go
thank you.
run, go
Yes.
save the world, go help out
Yes.
this patient. Any last remarks?
No, just thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I really appreciate you spending the time.